The full roster for Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2 was announced very recently, and to save time, I'm just gonna put on screen all of the characters that are gonna be making it onto the game, so you can pause the video if you wish to read it. There are quite a few characters from the first game that were cut out and were replaced with new characters. And I have to be honest with y'all, I'm a little bit disappointed with the new characters, but there's a valid reason. It's not like, oh, the character that I wanted to see make it in didn't make it in, you know, it's nothing like that. I don't necessarily have a problem with the characters that made it in. I like the inclusions, but there's just one problem that I have with the newcomers for the game, and it's honestly a very valid problem. Once you like hear my reasoning, you'll be like, actually, yeah, you got a point, you know, this guy's got a point. This isn't me saying like, oh, the character that I wanted to see make it in didn't make it in or anything like that, so don't worry. I don't have anything against the characters that did make it in, but there's one thing that I wish was like changed for the newcomers of this game. Out of all the newcomers that were announced for the game, only 2 of them come from newly represented Nicktoons that weren't in the first game: El Tigre and the Angry Beavers, and that is it. Every other newcomer is a character from a Nicktoon that was already represented in the first game. Squidward and Plankton from SpongeBob, Ember from Danny Phantom, Azula from Avatar: Last Airbender, etc. And I don't have a problem with these characters' inclusions, but it's honestly just really disappointing to me how only these 2 come from like new Nicktoons, and that's it. One thing that I was really looking forward to with this game was seeing what new Nicktoons would be represented in this game when compared to in the first Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. And I'm sorry, but it sucks that only 2 new Nicktoons will be represented in the game. That's disappointing to me. I'm sorry. I don't have a problem with the newcomers that made it in, but that is really disappointing how only 2 new Nicktoons will be represented in the game. Like when El Tigre was first announced, that made me think, you know, maybe other, you know, less popular, forgotten Nicktoons could get representation as well, you know, like back at the barnyard or whatever. That would be cool to see. But no, El Tigre would ultimately end up being the only one like that. It's just, it's disappointing. And then you have something like Jimmy Neutron. Like, Jimmy Neutron's reveal, I feel like would have been much more hyped if we didn't get Hugh in the first game. If Hugh Neutron wasn't in the first game, then I probably would have been much more hyped about Jimmy Neutron's inclusion in the second game. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great that he's in the game, but you know, his inclusion was kind of spoiled by Hugh's inclusion in the first game. If Hugh Neutron wasn't in the first game, well, the first game would be slightly worse, but it would also, you know, make Jimmy's reveal feel much more fresh and surprising. I'm not saying like any of the new characters that were announced aside from El Tigre and the Angry Beavers have to be like cut out or removed or anything like that. There isn't like a specific new Nicktoon that I want to see represented in the game, just literally anyone. I can only hope that the 4 DLC characters that the game will have, they're all newly represented Nicktoons. They're all characters from newly represented Nicktoons, because that's how it was with the first game. With the exception of Shredder, all of the DLC characters for the first Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl were characters from newly represented Nicktoons. So I can only hope that something similar to that happens with this game right here, where all the DLC characters are characters from newly represented Nicktoons. It's just really disappointing. I thought this game would have like kind of a bigger, you know, roster compared to the first game. Better Nicktoon representation. One of the biggest criticisms that people have with the first game is that it feels very lacking in content, and I think the okay Nicktoon representation, I think that plays a part in it, and that definitely could have been helped with this second game. I don't want to be too hard on this because like I understand that this isn't like a major like AAA title. This is from like an indie studio. I don't know if indie is necessarily the right word, but it's definitely like a small like studio. It's not like a super huge like massive budget studio or whatever, AAA. But I mean, like, look at like Nickelodeon Car Racers versus Nickelodeon Car Racers 2. Nickelodeon Car Racers 2 was a massive step up from Nickelodeon Car Racers 1. Nickelodeon Car Racers 1 and Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 1 are similar in that they're not necessarily bad games, like they're playable, but they're just really devoid of content. There's almost nothing in them at all, and it gives them kind of like this soulless feel to them. And then eventually sequels to both games get released, and there are improvements. Listen, just because the Nicktoon representation is poor still, that doesn't mean that Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2 is going to be like a bad game or anything like that, because there are a lot of improvements from the first game. From what I've seen, like the combat looks better, and the graphics look way better as well. I mean, like, look at Jellyfish Fields, alright? Looking in the first game and then look at it here. Jellyfish Fields looks f***ing gorgeous in this game. I love how it looks. But I just wish that more new Nicktoons were represented in the game instead of only 2 of them. Like, that's just kind of pathetic, really. You know, like, this was the roster for the first Nickelodeon Kart Racers, and then this is the roster for the second Nickelodeon Kart Racers. You could see there's a massive difference between the two. And I was hoping like a glow up similar to this could have happened with Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2, but I guess not really. I don't want people to take this the wrong way and think like I hate this game now, or like I'm not gonna buy it. I'm still gonna buy the game when it comes out, and I'm excited for it, but that does kind of disappoint me with like the Nicktoon, like some of the newcomers. It's not really like the newcomers themselves. I don't have a problem with them. I just wish there was more variety. I just wish they didn't mostly consist of already represented Nicktoons. That's the only issue I have. Like come on, man, give me Timmy Turner, okay? We got SpongeBob, we got Danny Phantom, and now we got Jimmy Neutron. Let us have Timmy Turner. Let's have a Nicktoons Unite reunion, please, okay? Just please, Nelvana, off. Give us that Nicktoons Unite reunion that we all want, you know? There's a question that's been in my head for a while now, and I just gotta ask this, okay? A lot of people say that the reason why Timmy Turner isn't in these games, like these recent Nickelodeon crossover games, the reason why there's no Fairly OddParents representation in any of the Nickelodeon Kart Racer or Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl games is because of Nelvana. You see, in the US, the Fairly OddParents is owned by Nickelodeon. However, internationally, it's owned by a studio named Nelvana. Fun fact, in some parts of the world, the Fairly OddParents didn't air on Nickelodeon. It aired on Disney Channel. I'm not joking about that. That is true. That is real. And so people say this is like the reason why there's no Fairly OddParents representation in these games, is because of that. But I don't think that's the case, because if you look at the older Nickelodeon crossover games, if you look at like Nicktoons Unite, Nicktoons Attack of the Toy Bots, whatever, like you could see there's Fairly OddParents stuff there. Like Timmy Turner is there. He's a playable character in them. Someone could argue that like it's because of like internationally, like in America it's not a problem, but like outside of the US it could be a problem. I don't know. But the thing as well is that it's not like these are like US only games. Like Nicktoons Unite and whatever was released internationally. It wasn't only released in the US. If that was the case, then yeah, I could kind of understand it, but it was released internationally. I don't know if it's exactly like Nelvana owns the Fairly OddParents everywhere except for in the US, or if there are some places where it's owned by Nelvana and other places where it's owned by Nickelodeon. I gotta admit, I'm not 100% like all that familiar with this topic, but still, I just want Timmy Turner in Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, okay? I just want something Fairly OddParents related in it. It doesn't even have to be Timmy Turner. They could do something similar to what they did with like the Wild Thornberrys or Rugrats or Hey Arnold, where it's like the fighter that represents the show is not the main character. If they don't want to include Timmy Turner, if even though he would have like moveset potential with Cosmo and Wanda, but like they could also go with like the Crimson Chin or Doug Dimmadome or something like that, Mr. Crocker. Like they have great moveset potential as well. But that's just personally me. And I also just mainly wish there was less popular Nicktoons in the game as well. Because that's the thing I don't like, it just feels like not really fair to only include the famous stuff. I would love it if Nickelodeon would take that extra risk and like not only include less popular forgotten Nicktoons into it, similar to how they included El Tigre, but like go the extra mile, include like Nicktoons that like people don't like, include like hated Nicktoons. Like, I don't care what people say, Fanboy and Chum Chum would be awesome in Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2. I don't even care what people say. I'd be down for that. Why is it that like they should only represent the beloved shows like SpongeBob and Danny Phantom and Avatar: The Last Airbender? Let me play as Sanjay and Craig. Why the hell not? Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl should feel like a celebration of Nickelodeon's history, in the same way Super Smash Bros. Feels like a celebration of not just Nintendo's history, but gaming history as a whole. And it doesn't really feel like that for the most part, you know, and that's just kind of what I wish this series would do, is acknowledge less popular, more forgotten Nicktoons. I can only hope that, like, if they decide to not do that with fighters, at least like add something similar to like trophies or spirits. I think that would be a great thing, you know? Add in trophies and like spirits or whatever of characters from like different Nicktoons. It could either be like Nicktoons that are already represented in the game, or preferably it could also include like Nicktoons that they don't have fighters in the game, like the Fairly OddParents or Back at the Barnyard. And they shouldn't just only include like the fighters and whatever. They should also include, like, you know, other characters as well, like, you know, like for SpongeBob, include like, you know, the playable characters and like SpongeBob and Patrick and whatever, but also include like Mr. Krabs, who isn't a playable character, or Gary or anything like that. I'm just giving like suggestions for the game, you know? There's always a possibility that like in the future we'll get Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 3. Given the pattern that's been going on, I wouldn't be surprised if we get it in like 2025. Given how the first game came out in 2021 and this game's coming out in 2023. It seems like, with the exception of 2019, every year since 2018, we've gotten like a new Nickelodeon crossover game, so who knows what we'll get next year. Will we get Nickelodeon Car Racers 4, or will we get like something completely new? Only time will tell. But yeah, I just wanted to make this quick video talking about my thoughts on the Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2 Newcomers and why I'm kind of disappointed with them. Again, I don't have a problem with the characters that made it in. My problem is not like, oh, the character that I wanted to see didn't make it in. I don't have like any specific most wanteds. I would be cool with literally anyone making it in, unless it's a Loud House character, of course. Some things never change, I'm sorry. But aside from that, I'd be cool with literally anyone. I'd be cool with literally anyone. So yeah, that's about it. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see you all next time. Adios.